Hey everyone, welcome back to Simming History, where we look at the history of architecture through the lens of The Sims. Before we get started today, most of you aren't subscribed, so if you like the video, please take a moment to hit like and subscribe. It does help out the channel. Today, we are looking at a fan request, the Victorian back-to-back. This is another vernacular type rather than style, this one developing out of a need. It's believed the first back-to-backs were created accidentally in booming industrial towns, especially those of the textile industry. It was right at the end of the 18th century when the Industrial Revolution was really getting started in the UK. And the back-to-backs were kind of Victorian UK's version of the American shotgun house, mass housing for workers. At first, houses were built onto the back of a street-facing house in the rear yard. These back houses faced blank yard walls. And these homes were at first fairly basic. One room, a kitchen on the ground floor, and one or two bedrooms on every subsequent floor. Later iterations included 2 rooms on the ground floor, with the second room serving as a scullery or sitting room or additional bedroom. But as you'll have noticed, this list does not include a bath or toilet. Toilets were public, located on the street or in the shared rear yard, accessed by a tunnel. When all of the neighbors built these rear-facing houses in the back, you ended up with a courtyard that would then serve all of the residents of the adjacent buildings. In this courtyard, you would have had the toilets, the washrooms, laundry, or even some smaller houses. Eventually, homes were being intentionally built this way, which is how they kind of became notorious. Imagine a dark courtyard accessed by an even darker tunnel. If you're a street-facing occupant, to use the facilities, you have to leave your home and go through the tunnel into this dark courtyard just to access the toilets, which had dirt floors and were a bucket. Eventually, this would become a stone-floored structure with what we would recognize as a toilet, but first, it was really basic. And if you lived in the back, you lived in that dark courtyard, where there was limited daylight and stagnant air. And you lived with the public toilets, with the smell, with occupants or really anyone off the street coming and going from them. Back-to-backs became known for being overcrowded, having poor sanitation, and overall being slums. These homes are where the working poor lived, largely factory workers. The back-to-backs of East London is where Jack the Ripper hunted for victims. It was kind of the dregs of Victorian society. Until, of course, the reforms, because Victorians loved a good reformer cause. First, they eliminated the courtyards. Both sides of back-to-backs now faced a street, and streets started having requirements for width to provide adequate light and ventilation. Then, they could only be built in blocks of 8 units, which are 4 units long, with one on each side, and toilets between each block. Still not ideal, still very public, and everyone can still see when you need to go. By the end of the 19th century, toilets were located in the basement and were shared between just 2 units. And by the 20th century, the homes had their own private baths in tiny gardens out front. So were they all bad? Well, to be honest, not really. There was a real strong sense of community in the back-to-backs, and you see that all over the UK. These were neighborhoods where people looked out for each other, and the women in these blocks of buildings would even share responsibilities, chores, child rearing. The kids would play in those rear courtyards. where the public toilets were located, and all the women would look out for all the children. So there was a good, strong sense of community and neighborhood and camaraderie. Even if it was a bit, let's say, overcrowded. In one of the most notorious examples, 700 people lived in only 34 buildings. Can you imagine the wait for the bathroom in the morning there? And today, back-to-backs are still all over the UK, at least the ones where both sides face the street, and people still live in them. In fact, they are well-loved and treasured parts of British and UK culture. Just with indoor plumbing. You can still see that courtyard style, however. If you visit the Birmingham Back-to-Backs and National Trust Museum. Thanks for joining me today as we took a look at the back-to-back. Next time, well, October is World Architecture Month, so I'm going to try to do something special for that. My schedule is still really crazy right now, but I will do my best, and you're just going to have to wait to see what it is. Until then, you can find me on Instagram at Simming History and on the Sims 4 Gallery at Simming History, where there'll be playable versions of this and many other builds. Thank you to all the new subs. If you haven't yet, hit subscribe. When we hit 1,000, I will do a live build. So I'll see you all next time. Until then, bye.